All right, so in this video, we're just going to kind of go over some of the basics of some of the things I want you to be able to do in Microsoft Excel for lab number 2. So I just grabbed a completely different data set. So this is going to look very similar to what you're going to do, but won't be exactly the same, but it'll at least show you how to do some of these calculations. So let's do a few simple things first, like talk about what's in the data here. In column A, I have the date, temperature here in Fahrenheit, temperature here, which we're going to calculate in Kelvin in a few moments. I have air pressure in millibars, wind speed in mile per hour. We're going to calculate the wind speed in meter per second. And then we're going to do this a little bit more challenging calculation of getting the saturation vapor pressure from the equation I gave you in the assignment. Over here I have basically all of our constants and conversion factors kind of in a separate spot, which we're going to see how to use those in a moment. We'll finish up the video by graphing some of the data with multiple y-axes so that we kind of all know how to do what we need to do for this assignment. So let's get started over here. First column I want to fill in here is the temperature in Kelvin. I'm given the temperature in Fahrenheit. I'd like to calculate the temperature in Kelvin, and to do that I'm just going to use this equation that was provided in the assignment. So let's get started. To do any sort of calculation in Excel, you just know you need to start everything with the equal sign. That means we're going to do a calculation. The equation down here says basically take the temperature in Fahrenheit, subtract 32, divide by 1.8, and then add 273.15. So let's do that. We can see that all this stuff happens inside of some parentheses here. So let's just go ahead and open some parentheses and do the calculations. So 67 degrees, I need to take that, which is in cell B2, subtract from it 32 degrees, and then close that up, divide it by 1.8, and then we're going to add at the very end 273.15. When you do that, it comes out at 293 Kelvin. Now what's nice about Excel is that once we've done this calculation once, when the cell is highlighted like this, you see this little box down here in the corner? Watch when I move the plus sign over that. See how it turns black? When it's black like that, I can double click that and it'll do all the calculations all the way down to the end of my data set, which is right there. So really helpful and easy thing to do. Another quick calculation. I'm giving you the wind speeds in mile per hour, and we're going to convert them to meter per second. Now you're going to do this the other way around in your assignment, but we'll just come over to this cell, we'll put in the equal sign, and we'll say we need to take this wind speed, so click on that cell, and we're going to multiply it by a conversion factor, which is 0.477. That's basically, there's 0.477 meters per second per mile per hour, so if I do that, I come up with 3.186. Again, I can just double click this, and it does all these calculations. But something strange happened here. Did you notice that now all of a sudden the values I'm getting are really weird? In fact, they go to 0 at this point. Why is it doing that? Well, when I used this constant over here in this cell I2, it worked perfectly for this one. Look up here though. When I click one cell down, it's now using I3, and then I4 and I5, and I don't want it to do that. I want it to always use cell I2 in the conversion. To lock that down, what you can do here is go to that equation that you just typed in here and put a $sign on either side of the I. And when you do that, it will, let me do it up here just to make sure I can get it right. There we go. It will lock that cell into place. So I'm going to hit enter, come back here and double click, and now it's properly doing the calculation. Watch again, keep your eye right up here. As I slide through here, see how the I2 stays constant, but it changes the E column in the calculation. So that's a handy way by which you can use a separate cell that has a constant in it. In fact, we're going to get some really good time use of that right now. We're going to calculate the value of the saturation vapor pressure. Now, to do that, we have to use several constants like V naught, which is this value up here, L over RV, and T naught. But the only thing that's going to change over here is the air temperature in Kelvin, which we've already calculated. So watch how we're going to do this one. Come to the cell and click equals. You can see that the first thing we need to do is we need to get the value of V naught, which is here, 6.11. Now I know that I need that one to stay kind of locked in place, so I'm going to go ahead and right away and put some $signs around that I so that it doesn't go anywhere. All right, next thing I need to do is we're going to multiply that by the exponent. That's what this E stands for, so we're going to put an EXP. Now, everything that you see in this part of the equation is going to be inside of parentheses following the exponent, which is why I just open and close some parentheses. But in order to help Excel do its order of operations correctly, we need to be very careful about how we use our parentheses. So for example, the next thing I'm going to put inside the exponent here is L over RV. So let's just go ahead and open up open and close some parentheses so we can do that calculation on the inside. Well, what is L? It's this huge number here. So let's click on that. We're going to do divide by RV. Now those again are my constants, so they're not going to change, which means I need to come up to my equation here and put those dollar signs around the i's again. So that's all I'm doing right up here in the formula bar at the top. So I'm just locking those cells in place so as we do these calculations iteratively as we go down, those values don't change. Now, I need to come back outside of that parenthesis that I just created, so right out here, and type in the multiplication sign, the asterisk. We're going to open another set of parentheses and close them, because inside there I'm going to do two other calculations, 1 over t naught and 1 over t. So we're inside of these parentheses here. Let's go ahead and open and close another set, because this is how you have to tell Excel to do the order of operations, and do 1 divided by t naught, which is this. Again, that's another constant, so I need to put my dollar signs around the I, and then I'm going to come outside of that, and I'm going to subtract from this, open and close another set of parentheses, and I'm going to do 1 divided by T, which is my temperature in Kelvin, which is cell C2. Now I'm not going to lock that up. I want it to stay open because it's going to iteratively calculate as a function of temperature down the line. Well, now what I've got here is everything I need. I calculate it out. It tells me that my vapor pressure, when I put this whole equation in, is 22.8 millibars. So now watch this. I can come right over here to this plus sign where it turns to black again, double click, and it just did all of those calculations. Now you'll do this again for the vapor pressure, which is the same equation, but instead of putting in T, you'll put in dew point temperature, which is TD, but this will at least show you how to do it. And you can at any time pause this video, watch it again so you can see exactly how I put in this equation, which will help you out in your assignment. All right, so what we want to do next is we'd like to turn some of our data into a plot. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and make a plot that's going to have date as the x-axis, and on one y-axis we're going to have the air temperature in Fahrenheit, and the other y-axis we're going to have the air pressure in millibars. So this is what we're going to do. First I'm going to click over here on column A. I'm going to hold down the command key and click on column B and column D. So I've highlighted these three columns as the columns I would like to graph. Now there's multiple ways in which you can create the graph. I'm going to go up here to the word insert in the menu bar and come down to insert a chart. When you do that, it'll open up this bar down here, and for me I'm going to choose the scatter plot. And I don't want the individual dots, I want a smoothed line. So let's click on that. Now this is the graph that I end up getting. It looks kind of interesting because dates are all kind of scrunched up on the bottom. I have two separate lines and they don't really show us too much, and that's because both of these lines are being plotted against this y-axis over here. Well, I want to move the pressure data to a secondary y-axis over on this side. So what I'm doing right now is I'm hovering over the line. You can either right click on it or you can just double click on it like this, and it will open up the option to format the data series. I want to put all these data on a secondary axis, which is what I just did. Now when I click OK, what you can see is that the pressure lines are over here on, the pressure line corresponds to the data that's over on this y-axis, and the temperature's over here. Now let's kind of format this a little bit. For example, we can move around our menu, not our menu, but our legend, put it inside here. Then I can even stretch this out so it looks a little bit bigger. So I can position this wherever I kind of want to have it. And then the next thing I can do here is I can maybe change the colors. So for example, maybe I want to make a black line. I've just double clicked on it, go over here to line, choose the color to be black, and now it's black. Now so that I can keep it straight on which side of the y-axis corresponds to which data, I might want to come over to this y-axis and say, well, I have this in red, why not make this in red as well? So I can click on that and say, well, why don't we make the colors inside there by clicking on font, make the font color red. And if I do that, it's now red. I can see they're a little bit different shades, so I can come in here to this one and say, well, let's change this over to that same value of red. So click right there, and now they're the same. So that'll at least help me see the graph better. Finally, my dates are really scrunched up here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the open space in the graph, and see that little box? I'm going to grab it and slide it up like this a little bit. Then I'm going to double click on my x-axis down here, or you could right click on it and say format axis. And what I want to do now is I want to kind of change that so that instead of having it write these dates and values Horizontally, let's make them vertical. So I'm going to change my custom angle to 90 degrees, which is all I did here, and click OK. And now it looks a little bit better. We can see the dates a little more clearly as we go through the data here. So this is just one way by which you can create a graph like this. You could have also used the line graph option, but I tend to like the scatter because you get a little bit more use out of it, a little bit more easy to customize. Well, I hope that video kind of helps a lot of you out with getting this assignment done. I've got a couple of requests to see if students want to do this by hand, and I would just tell you, don't do this by hand. It will take an enormous amount of time. Use Microsoft Excel, use a spreadsheet software, write a program for this, and it'll take fractions of the time to get it done. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up the video. Hope you found it useful. Thank you.